What's going on, guys? Today we are here with my new friend, Alan. Alan has been a trader for quite some time. We're going to hear his story here. He doesn't have a YouTube channel. He doesn't have a Twitter. He's not trying to sell you anything. He's just simply a guy out there making some money in the markets. And, well, he's here today to talk about kind of that story and how he got to where he's at today, and kind of maybe even asked me some questions about where I'm at and all that fun stuff. So big thank you to Alan for dropping by the BDH today. We were actually supposed to go live on YouTube, but the internet didn't want us to go live, Alan. I think the internet knew.
Well, I think we decided Danny Trades was seen in the neighborhood with the pair of wire cutters.
Ooh.
The internet just went down magically. So,
not Danny Trades.
Yeah.
So tell us, give us a little background on
all right.
how you got into trading. What was the first thing that you traded?
Sure. So I started probably 1999 when the first bubble came, because I was that age, 25 years old and excited like we're all going to be millionaires overnight. And so I learned my first lesson when that bubble burst. I took some courses with my mother 30 years ago as well. How to trade options, how to trade covered calls, all the other ways people were making money. And every course cost $3,000 or $5,000. And over the years, I traded them all. I didn't buy a lot of courses, but I learned every system I could. 2 years ago, I decided when I grow up, I want to be a trader for real, and started inching that way. I did all the research, and I found all the guys selling future courses, and I started pining through them and learning all the systems, what I could, and deciding what kind of trader I wanted to be when I grow up. And then I found Patrick Wieland, and I realized, well, he's kind of a big, what's the thing on the side of your building again? A big cock. But aside from that, you're on the right side of the trade. It's about the momentum for me. And your system is simple. And I love that you don't give me signals every day. You don't tell me when to buy and sell. I like just the way you read the market. And so I started watching your show about a year ago. I started trading prop firms because I just learned that they existed, and thought, wouldn't it be nice to lose somebody else's money instead of my own? And so for 6 months, I just blew up accounts, and I had the best time just dollar cost averaging and blowing up accounts every day, rebuying and trying to figure out how to do this thing. And then one day I realized this is going to come to a head. I'm going to have to start making money or get a real job. And I got serious. And I started breaking the bad habits. And lucky for me, it coincided with the time you got serious. And I'm not saying you weren't serious before, but on your journey, which has been 10 years documented on YouTube, you went through all the different steps and all the phases of big wins, big losses. You were trading penny stocks. Whatever it is, you hit something 6 months ago when you're like, this is a formula that works. And I've just done nothing but tried to copy you and learn from that piece of the equation was what fixed my trading. And in the last 6 months, I've taken six-figure payouts. My wife is no longer questioning my life choices. And, I feel like the journey has just started, because I am in micros in the early mornings. I still don't have what it takes to trade the big minis yet. When it's moving a lot, I will switch to the minis around 10 a.m. and I'll trade a couple of them. And I can make a living at this. I'd love to scale up and learn how to hold 4 minis through a flag setup, and I'm just not there yet. So I'm watching you do it, and I think, gosh, that guy's a knucklehead. I could do it too. So if I was going to ask you a question, Patrick, 10 years you've been on this journey, and you weren't great when you started, but you went out and you asked everybody every question there was. You went to people's offices and watched them trade, and you did all the research yourself, and you taught yourself how to trade. What were the big steps for you? What were the big milestones that you thought were important, and how can you shorten my time from 10 years down to a couple?
That's a loaded question right there. I don't know if I can just give that out for free on the internet. But honestly, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier about just very simply, hey, what is the goal with trading, right? The goal of trading is to take money out of the market consistently, to find some type of strategy that allows you to do that. So for a lot of traders, they get into trading and they just want to get rich. But most traders don't understand the fact that, like, hey, you're not going to get rich overnight. So the only way to get rich trading is to do it consistently. And when you first start out, the best thing to do is just try to learn some type of consistency. And when I say consistency, it can be anything. It can be, just showing up every morning, looking at the charts, showing up every morning, identifying key levels, whatever it is, like just doing something consistently every day. And then getting to a point where, most traders will end up losing the first year, the first 2-3 years, whatever it is. And if you have no process, you have no actual strategy, and you're just losing money because you're taking every possible trade that you can and you have no idea what you're really doing, well, how can you ever actually learn how to do it the right way? How can you learn to make money consistently if you can't even, lose money consistently? So I would say the best thing that would stop you from wasting 10 years of learning is to just try to keep it as simple as possible in the beginning. Don't have a million different strategies. You kind of talked about this as well earlier about the bull flags. Like, hey, if you can identify bull flags and it's working for you, just only trade bull flags, only trade bear flags, only trade one setup every single day over and over and over. And then look at the results and be like, oh, it's, if I trade this setup, I don't make money, I lose money. So, okay, let me try to figure out what can I do? Do I need to move my stop loss? Do I need to, move my profit target? But I have to find a baseline. When you start working on something, you got to find kind of where you're at, what's your baseline, and then you want to start to build on that. A lot of traders, when they first start, they have no baseline. They don't want to build a baseline. They just want to go right from zero to hero. And well, I think we all know how that story goes. Most people will end up blowing up long before they ever get to a point of finding success. So I think, that's probably the biggest piece of advice, just trying to really focus on consistency more than anything. If you're going to lose money consistently. Show me that you can lose $100 every day and no more, right? If you can literally lose $100 every single day for a month straight, well, you're doing something, something's going on. You're at least following some type of plan. You're trying to do something consistently. Doesn't mean that you have to make money consistently. Just do something consistently, show up, trade the same way every single day, and then tweak it and then tweak it and then build and then work on it. And you got to really become obsessed with one strategy for 6 months, and then really refine it and work on it and build on it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's habits too. The power of habits. I don't think I ever read that book, but the idea is once you start down the wrong path and doing the wrong things, you're just going to keep doing it, and it's harder to change an established habit than it is to build new, fresh ones. And that for me was always a challenge. Was once I started dollar cost averaging, I couldn't stop. Every time a trade went wrong, rather than take a $100 loss, suddenly I'm in 10 contracts and the account's gone. So breaking the habits is one thing that I struggle with. But then, like you said, if you just start with good habits, it seems like a faster path to success.
Well, I mean, every trader is going to go through that curve of doing bad things, right? They're going to try to get rich overnight. They're going to try to do, trying to pick the top, trying to pick the bottom, whatever it is. Every trader's got to go through that, but it's almost impossible to be consistent if you don't have any type of strategy, right? If you're just simply jumping from the next move to that move to this prop firm to that prop firm to this strategy to this trading to this thing, how do you ever find that baseline? So just becoming obsessed with hey, I really want to work on this one strategy for the next 6 months. Do that consistently for 6 months and see what happens. If at the end of 6 months you're hey, guess what? I broke even, right? I didn't lose money for 6 months. Wow, that's, we're doing something. We're moving in the right direction. And that's the best part about futures, especially with the micros. You can start out trading micros and, set a goal of hey, I want to make $20 a day with a micro, and just trade one micro a day to make $20. If you could do that for a month straight, think about how much you're going to learn. Like you said, you're going to learn that the discipline. You're going to learn that hey, if I want to make $20 a day, I need to do this. I need to wait for the perfect setup and then get my $20. Even though it's $20, at least mentally you're hey, you have a goal. You're not aiming for $20,000 days. You're aiming for $20 days. Let me get $20 a day consistently.
Yeah, I read a book recently, the Best Loser Wins, and probably the most useful advice that I got out of that book, and there's a lot of great bits in there, but take a loss. Understand at any given moment the market's going up or down, and are you on the right side? And if you're wrong, get out, and then you lose less. And it seems like a small thing, but it's a mindset that most people don't have. You don't naturally have it. If you're wrong for a minute, you have hope that it's going to come back. And if you're wrong for 2 minutes, then you might dollar cost average because you're trying to rationalize how you'll get out of it faster. But if you have the mindset that it's, I was wrong and I'm out, oops, no big deal, I lost a few bucks. That's way more profitable than sitting on the wrong side of the market. In fact, weirdly, I watched a football game once with a bunch of guys who all had the same allegiances to whatever their teams were, and then one guy who was a trader, like a lifelong successful trader. And throughout the game, the momentum shifted back and forth. And I watched all these guys, they were hopeful, and then they were despair, and then hope and despair. And the trader, throughout the game, he was just betting. The momentum shifted towards the Giants. He's like, hey, who wants to make a bet that the Giants are going to score next? And then momentum would shift back to the Patriots. He's like, I bet you the Patriots are going to get a field goal. He had no allegiance to his position for more than what the momentum shifted. And that, to me, is the trader mindset that is hard for normal people, normies, to get.
The normies. You know, the thing about it like this, though, I always said, like, if you go to a horse race and you have an option of betting on the horses after they leave, you know, the gate, are you going to bet on the horse that's all the way in the back? Or are you going to bet on the horse that's almost at the finish line about to win? So it's like trading, right? If you enter a bad trade and you get stopped out, that is almost like, hey, I want my stop to be at a level that it like invalidates whatever I thought was going to happen. So that way I'm like, oh, look, you know, this bull flag clearly was a fake out. And now, guess what? Now we're probably going to tank because the bull flag failed to break out. Everyone's going to get trapped. I got stopped out. And now I can look for a short. Now I can look for that next, you know, that momentum. If we break the bull flag to the downside, we push back up, we find resistance. Like, that's my opportunity. Whereas, you know, the losing trader mindset is like, hey, I'm going to hold on to this long forever. You know, because it's a bull flag. And you're like, well, you identified a bull flag. It was a fake out. It's getting choppy. The market's pulling back. Like, let me get out of this and then wait for that next setup instead of holding. Like, I see people that are holding, you know, through a 100-point drawdown. Like, that's a 100-point drawdown is 100 points that you could have, you know, you could have got stopped out for a 20-point profit and then maybe made 40 points to the downside because instead of hoping and praying for a 100-point drawdown, like, it might go back to break even.
Yeah, I find that the trader mindset is you're hardwired for that hopefulness it'll come back. And if you can break that, you win. If you break it because you have no allegiance to your winning trade or your losing trade. You're just, I'm in it while it's working and I'm out when it's not. And that's tough. And I've tried to give myself like practice exercises to learn this skill because it's not natural to me. And so like I will buy like a micro or whatever and I will get it. I'm on the right side of the trade and I will get stop loss to even and I will not sell it. I will watch it go 100 points and I will watch it go 150 points and come all the way back. And I will sit there and I will sweat and I will bite my fingernails and I will stress because I just want to get used to seeing, you know, being on the right side. And having that feeling that if I lose, it's okay because I know my loss is defined. And that's part of my trading plan. I'm going to take 5 trades today and 2 of them are going to miss and I'm going to lose 20 points apiece. And, you know, so be it. If I lose 20 points, that's a win for me. It's a lose if I lose 21 points or 40 points or, you know, in some case, I'll admit I've lost a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, think about it like this, right? If you get stopped out for a 20-point loss and you avoid a 100-point down move, you've made 60 points. Like that's 60 points that you've saved yourself. People think that the capital in their account like always has to, you know, oh, I need to always win so that it goes up. No, I need to be able to cut off those losers so the $5,000 in my account doesn't go from 5 to 2,000 because I held on to a loser. Like I need to cut it off. You made a really good point earlier. We were talking a little bit about the stream before the stream, how, you know, you you were trading your own money, you got into the prop firm space, and then you kind of got into this pattern of blowing up. And what did you do to break that pattern of basically, YOLOing and blowing up evals and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, that's tough. Like I said, it's hard to break a habit. It's easy to make one. And so I really just started holding myself more accountable. I at one point I had put like a rowing machine next to my trading desk just to get my hands off the keyboard. And then I started listing all the setups that I had. And if I was entering a trade, I had to check it off which setup that was. And if it wasn't one of those perfect setups, then I recognized that was just me being fingery with the keyboard. And that started helping me cut down on my trades. Really now I'm trying, I tend to mess up a little at 9:30, 9:45. I get excited. So I play micros instead of minis, and because I might get 3 trades in there, just trying to catch the move. And if I lose all 3, but they're all 20 points, I still feel like a winner because I didn't hurt myself. And then I want to be one trade at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I want to go play with my kids at 11. And so if I'm sitting at the computer all day, I'm just reinforcing the bad habits of finding that 11 o'clock trade, the 12 o'clock trade, the 3 p.m. power hour trade that never happens for me. I'm worse. I have a worse track record at 3 p.m. than you do, Patrick.
It's all part of the process. I mean, there's some good days, there's some bad days. But what I like, right, the point that you made there of taking your one trade, locking it in, winner, loser, whatever it is, like you're happy with it, and then you're able to go off, spend time with your family, and not be like obsessed, because that's the dark side of trading, right? A lot of people don't really think about this, but like trading can be very dark. It can be very depressing, especially when you're losing. You have a lot of really fun highs because you have those green days and you're excited, it's awesome, and then you have those red days, and you don't want to tell anybody. You don't want to tell your wife, like, hey, I lost $10,000 a day, because she's not going to know why you lost 10,000, and no one's going to be like, are you kidding me? They don't understand it. So like, there's no one to really tell. And it is very, very kind of, I guess, lonely, and it can be very dark. So having, this system in place where you're like, hey, my goal is not to make money. My goal is to follow my system. And then by 11, I'm with my kids. So that way it's like win or lose, you just see it as like, hey, I'm done no matter what, because I followed my strategy. I got stopped out. I'm fine with it. I'm going to go spend time with my family now. And then tomorrow, guess what? I'm going to do it again. And you made a good point. I love like when traders talk about little things that they do, but they don't even notice it. But like you said, you're 20 points. Like if I get stopped out for 20 points, hey, that's fine. If I get stopped out 3 times in a row for 20 points, maybe, it's a good time to walk away, but at least you're not like, hey, I took 3 trades and one was 20 points, one was 100 points, one was this point. So like, there's just no consistency there. And you got to find consistency with your losers if you ever want to find consistency with your profits. It's funny too, because a lot of people, we talked about it, the dollar cost averaging. People will average into losers all day long. They got no problem with it. But when it comes to adding to a winner, or holding a winner for longer, that's like the hardest thing in the world. I mean, I deal with the same thing. I got no problem holding for a 20-point loser, but when it comes to holding for that 20-point profit, it gets to 15 points, and I'm like, I'll just take it. I'll take it. But that's like that mental game as well. And I like the fact that you said, the idea of like buying a contract and just like letting it do its thing. And then you kind of like, you build up this muscle memory or this experience of like, hey, every time I take a good trade and I let it do its thing, like I see that 100-point setup. I see that 100-point move, right? And I'm able to like actually capture that. So that way you're not so quick to sell. A lot of people will be like, Patrick, I can't hold on to my winners. What am I going to do? I'm like, well, where do you take profit? It's like, well, as soon as I'm in the green, I take profit. But I'm like, why? Like, what tells you to take profit? Like, I don't know, man. I was just in the green. A lot of that's, they're either trading too large of size, they're focused on their P&L. But if you go back and you look, like I do this all the time. I go back and I look at a lot of my trades, and I'm like, hey, not that I'm like going back and like doing hindsight trading, but I look at my trades and I'm like, hey, I took my 20-point profit. It worked out in my favor because then the market pulled back, or, I took my 20-point profit, but then the market went up 50 points. But again, it's like I took my 20 points, right? That's the underlying focus here, is that I took my 20 points. Sure, the market went higher, but I had a setup that allowed me to capture 20 points and then lock it in and then look for a next setup. So a lot of people, they get so wrapped up on this, like, oh man, I sold too early. I sold too early. I sold too early. I'm like, did you take profit? Did you lock it in? Did you have a plan? Did you get your goal? Everything after that means nothing, because again, it's just random results. Like you said, it's every time we enter a trade, it could either go up, it could either go down. But if I'm able to find an edge that allows me to get my 20 points, you know, if the market's going to go up, I got an opportunity to make 20 points. It could go down, but at least I'm like, I see something that is telling me that this is a setup that I can have a little bit more of an edge. And that's all trading is. It's just finding setups that gives us, you know, a 60%, a 70% chance of locking in 20 points compared to just hoping and praying and just looking at charts. And, you know, some traders out there will tell you that it's just the numbers, but I think there's clearly something that, you know, you should probably look at the chart before placing a trade.
There's something very singular and focused in the way you describe that, which is you're looking for 20 points. And I've noticed that in your trading this year, you've really done that. You don't leave a lot of runners. And I'm a little more schizophrenic, right? So I've got the Wieland trading system that I'm learning, but I'm also still just naturally looking to pick bottoms and tops and looking for that big win. And so I'm trying to leave the runner for 100 points, which it's fun. But it's not, again, it's not focused and disciplined. And I could see that's a place that a person can improve and say, this is my system today. This is what my plan for today is. And I'm only going to trade this and not look at that other prize and not look at the other shiny object, because I know 9 different trading systems. I could bounce between all of them. And I guarantee you, we don't know what the market's doing right now because the internet's down. But if it's going up or down, I can find you a trade. One of those systems right now is having a sell signal or a buy signal. The discipline to just know one is worthwhile because there's a certain confidence that comes with that. If you know your system, you know you can lose X and it's not going to phase you. You know you can make X and you can hold to that point. If you trade like a schizophrenic like me, then you often find yourself not even sure which system you're trading in any given moment. And that's, again, focus and habits, right? And that's what I think all traders have to focus on.
Well, see, the funny thing too is, like, I love this like whole thing of, you know, it's like my course. Like, someone buys the course, they start trading, like, Patrick, you know, like, majority of the time I'm having more losers than I'm having winners. And I'm like, but are you though? Like, if you have a 60%, 70% win-loss ratio and you take 10 trades, you're going to have 3 to 4 losers. People think that there's a holy grail out there of just never having losers, right? It's like so simple to be like, oh, I just follow Patrick and I'm never going to lose. You can look at my Tradeify results. I've had over, I think, 350 winning trades, but I've also had 100 losing trades, right? Out of that's like the stats. So does that mean that those losing trades, does that make me a bad trader? Does it make me, my strategy not good because I had too many losers? No, because I still had more winners. I still had more profit. I still had a system. I still followed it. So again, like, for new traders out there or anyone who's starting this journey, you've got to find a system. You got to find a strategy, and you've got to trade it consistently for a certain, 3 months, 6 months before you go and go, oh man, this ain't going to work. I just can't, it ain't going to work. Because again, it's like, I always laugh too, because let's say you get funded, your first trade of the funded account, guess what? There is a 70% chance or a 30% chance, whatever your win-loss ratio is, for me, 30%, that it might be a loser. So, and it can be very detrimental. The first trade of a brand new account, you take a trade, you take your setup, and then you get stopped out and you're like, oh, and it can put you on tilt very, very quickly. And I think a lot of traders, that's where it sends them to tilt, right? They go from the eval, it's the first day in the funded account, and they want to put up big numbers. And, the first trade of the day ends up being a red trade. And now they're just on tilt and they can't stop themselves before they blow up the entire account. And I speak from experience because, well, I know how that feel it is. What do you do to stop yourself from just blowing it all up nowadays?
It's a good question. I think about how I'm feeling in a trade now. And because what I notice is when I'm trading out of the pocket, I'm often on the wrong side of the trade. My entries aren't good. When I'm with the momentum, I'm not spending 10 minutes, 20 minutes in the red waiting for it to turn green. When I'm with the momentum, it's green right away. It may not move yet. I may be 2 points or 5 points in the green, but I know just because I'm sitting +5 versus -5 for a while, I know that I got in right with all the right thinking and process. If I'm sitting there for five minutes waiting for that breakout and I'm always 5 points, 10 points in the hole, my emotion is off, but I just know that I probably entered badly. I entered without that, whatever the discipline, I entered without the momentum on my side. And so how I'm feeling at any given moment seems to tell me I'm in the pocket, I'm entering well, I'm getting out, and I feel really confident. And if I find that I'm just sitting there -5 points, 10 points, because I got it in at the top of the range of a bull flag while I'm waiting for it to break, then I know I screwed up. That's you have a feeling in your gut. If your first couple of trades are right, you're crushing it. And if you're wrong, then you're chasing it and you're going to lose money. So then the hardest thing to do is to walk away, go get a cup of coffee.
Well, it's funny because, again, it goes back to like that emotions, right? If you enter a trade and you have a bad entry and you have to sit through that drawdown, like, a lot of times, like sometimes I'll enter a bull flag breakout early. I'm like, oh, it's going to break out. And then I enter and it pulls back and it continues to kind of consolidate. And I have to sit through, 10 points of drawdown. And what happens then is, guess what? I end up taking profit early because I go from the thought process of like, hey, I'm entering this trade, I'm looking to take profit. Now I'm like getting back in that emotional state of like, fuck, I hope it just goes back up. I hope it just goes back up. And as soon as it starts to go back in the green, I end up taking a small profit because my emotion is just like, I got to get out of this trade. I got to get out as quick as possible, right? I got to get out. And I get out, or, I take profit, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden I look and now it's like this chart it's actually breaking out. It's actually making the move. It's up 40, 50 points in there. Obviously I'm not going to get the whole move, but again, it's like going back to the entry, right? Why is the entry so important? The entry is so important because if I'm taking random entries, if I'm just entering with FOMO, if I'm not waiting for my setup, and then I'm sitting through that drawdown, I'm not even going to be able to capitalize on an actual good move anyway, because now I'm just emotionally kind of like, oh, I got to take profit. I got to get out early. I got to get out of this trade. It's a bad trade. So I like that, right? Like you're self-aware of the fact of like, hey, if I'm in a trade and I'm like starting to like kind of panic, or I'm starting to like think about it in a negative way, then there's probably something to be said about that. Like I probably did something wrong. I entered maybe too much size. I tried a dollar cost average, whatever it is. I'm doing something emotionally that's now making this good trade turn into just, hoping and praying. And it's funny too, because again, sizing, right? Sizing is everything, especially with like Apex evals and all that. If you size in too large, you just can't handle any type of drawdown. And then even if you're right, I've had this happen many times where I'm 100%, I'm on the right side of the trade, but I entered too early, I FOMO'd or whatever it is, and then I end up getting stopped out, and then I watch the market go exactly kind of to where I said it was going to go. So that's a very defeating experience, I would say. So again, like you said, it's kind of, I think the biggest success for any trader out there is just being self-aware, like being able to know when you're, feeling kind of a little on tilt, when you know that, hey, I should probably walk away because it ain't gonna be good for me, it ain't gonna work out. So what would be like that one thing that makes you walk away?
I definitely get in the angry mode every now and then. So I do on my Apex accounts, because I use on Rhythmic. I will go into the Rhythmic settings and you can give yourself a personal lockout, like a trader defined limit. And so I trade the small ones, the 25s and the 50,000s. And so I might have a $500 or $1,000 limit. And that forces me to trade small because I don't want to hit it at 9:35 in the morning. So whatever it takes to get you sized right so that you're comfortable. Maybe sizing is the biggest thing, because it both blows up your accounts and it causes the frustration to make you trade badly. So maybe it starts small and it's, grow your size as your confidence grows. And if I had one last one to add, it was the first time I passed my 20 Apex combines and I got into the 20 PA accounts, sat there and I was like, I have no idea what to do now, because I spent all this time learning how to pass combines. I didn't spend any time learning how to trade, and I had to like start over. And I was like, well, how do I before I had no risk limits, and now I'm like, wait a minute, I need to focus on being a good trader. And so, yeah, maybe the last thing is trade the combines like they're real. They do matter. When I'm at combine number 360, I think, and that's like a point of shame to me. So whenever I see it go up one tick, I get a little mad at myself. I count them now.
Well, I mean, I think that everybody will share that same experience. It's very easy to blow up the evals. It's very easy to go on till. It's frustrating. It's hard. You want to get funded. You want to start working for that payout. And, you got to just kind of treat every trading day very similar. I think some of my worst trading days for me, when I look back through the history of bad trading days, my worst days always come from those days where I'm like one day away from a payout. I'm one trade away from getting, funded. I'm one trade. Like, it's always that one day, like that day right before something important happens where I go on till whatever it is. Like, I'm one day away from getting a payout. And all of a sudden I mentally, I'm just like, no, go full, just, I lose all brain power. I don't know. Just go full on. I don't want to say retarded, but just go full retarded. And I end up just, I just can't help myself. And before I know it, I've had that happen where I was one day away from an Apex payout, and I needed them to make like $200. Same thing with Top Step. Top Step has the rule of like, $200 a day to get a payout. I was up like $30,000 in the account, and then I just couldn't handle myself. I just couldn't stop myself, from blowing up the account. And I was one day away. So it's like, I look back, I'm like, man, like, did I, was it me? It was clearly me.
Yeah, it's a video game, and you get excited. And once the emotions get a hold of you, there's not much that will stop you. So knowing how you're feeling at any given moment is important. But I personally need the tool of the lockout feature, because I do get mad, and I do double down. And in fact, it happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I was trading one micro to get started, and I averaged in. Next thing I know, I'm on 16 micros. And the worst thing that could have happened, I broke even. So now I'm going to do it again, because I reinforced that habit.
Like it.
Yeah. So,
well, Alan, it was great to have you here. I wish we could have done the live stream like we had planned, but the internet just came back on after an hour of no internet. What a total debacle here. I'm looking forward to maybe having you back in the future. It's funny because, I'm in this mindset, like right now, I'm like, fuck, do I trade? Do I trade? But see, what's funny is this could cause a blow up day. Like, this is perfect blow up day, right? Because something happened this morning, right? The internet went out. I couldn't trade the open. I'm looking at the open right now. I've got insane FOMO. The market dumped, 200 points at open. We could have made so much money. And now it's 11:25, and it would be very, very easy for me to start trading and then just, blow everything up, because like emotionally I'm like in this weird state of FOMO, and I think I'm going to be just kind of walking away here. What would you say?
You have more discipline than me. I'm going to check the market and see if there's a perfect setup, and I may walk away. I probably will. Not feeling like I have to take money out every day is very freeing, right? So once you get over the mindset of I need to take this much money, instead of I'm going to take what the market gave me today, that's very helpful. I will have winning days, and I'll walk away with $500 and think, I really wanted 1,000, but I won, and now I'm having lunch and coffee, and I feel great. So you take what the market gives you. The charts just came back up. I see it on the screen over there, and I'm like, but I'm not going to catch that knife, and I'm not going to jump onto the end of the train either. So maybe that's our trading day. It's been fun. I really appreciate you having me, and you've been such a big influence. You have taken me from blowing up accounts to payouts, and again, I got a new and better life that I like to take all the credit for myself, but you have shortened the learning curve by years, and I appreciate you. And whatever the lawfare comes after you, man, don't let them get you down. We will persevere. Your fans need you. I need you. So keep up the great work.
Wow, I've been trying to bring a tear to my eye there. No, that was that. It's always cool to meet people that really do kind of follow along and see the journey and kind of find some type of commonality, I guess, common story here. Like, I think everybody at the end of the day, everybody would just love to make a little bit of extra money. And I tell people when they first start trading, I'm like, hey, how much money do you make working? They're like, oh, I make, $50,000 a year. I'm like, so like, would you be happy to make an extra $25,000 trading, for an hour a day? Would you be happy with an extra $100 a day? And they're like, well, yeah, but I want to make $1 million. I'm like, well, I get it. We all want to make that, but trading is going to give you exactly kind of like what you put into it, right? If you put into trading this idea that you're going to make $1 million, well, it's going to blow up $1 million in your face. But if you really approach trading with this like idea that like, hey, any extra money that I make from trading, it could change my life, right? Like any extra money that I can make an hour a day to spend more time with my family, whatever it is, like that's the power, right? Like that's going to motivate you to really be disciplined, and that's going to focus you, and that's going to give you these goals. And that way you can, at the end of the day, tell your wife like, hey, honey, guess what? Instead of losing money today, I made $50. And she's like, oh, congrats. Good job, honey. Like she might not be impressed because she don't know all the work you put into it. But at the same time, there's nothing, there's nothing more debilitating or harder for a new trader than being like, honey, I lost $5,000 a day. Honey, I lost, and telling your wife over and over that you've lost this much money, like it's going to get to a point where it's going to have effects on your personal life, your marriage, whatever it is. So I think you got to find that sweet spot. What really is realistic for you? What really would be life-changing? Do you really need that $1 million payout, or would you be fine with an extra $10,000 a month or whatever it is? And I think a lot of people would probably be very, very happy with just a couple extra $1,000 a month, but they're not going to allow themselves to get to that point because they're so greedy and they want to make millions, which if it was that easy, we'd all be rich. If everyone could just go online and watch somebody on the internet make money, I guess nobody would have to work. So big thank you to Alan for coming in today, trying to keep it short and sweet. We had him here today. We're going to have him on the live stream. Just didn't work out, but at least we got this epic little video for you guys. And if you have any more questions or fun stuff, make sure you tune into the live stream, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace to the Middle East. Big thank you to Alan for coming in here today. And I'll see you guys later on.